Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for the folks that may be on the East Coast. Thank you so much for joining this Handshake webinar. We're really excited about today's topic. We're going to go ahead and get started and kick off the discussion, and want to make sure that everybody can hear me clearly. So to do a check, there is a hand icon, so you can virtually raise your hand. And if you don't mind, please press that icon so we know that you can hear us. Great. So it sounds like everybody can hear us clearly. And then another logistical item here. So below the hand raise icon, there's a question mark icon as well for folks that would like to submit questions. We've got an amazing team that's here. We have an amazing team that's here. And we have my colleague Mallory, who heads Handshake's customer success team, and she's in the room to answer any of your questions in the chat box. We're going to do our best to answer all of your questions throughout the discussion, but if we don't get to yours, don't worry, we'll follow up afterward. Another quick note here that this session is being recorded. So if you do have colleagues that can't make today's discussion, no need to worry. We have a recording that we will have available for you afterwards. Now that we've finished all the maintenance and housekeeping items, I'd like to welcome everyone and want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Today's topic, like I said, is an important one, and we're going to discuss how your company can build a diverse candidate pool and inclusive workforce. And before getting deep into the discussion topic, we want to start off with some brief introductions so you know who you're listening to. So I'm Nehemiah Green, and I lead social impact here at Handshake. And I'm joined by Emily, who I will let introduce herself.
Hi, guys. I'm Emily Vogel. I lead university recruiting at Fox. And I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys.
Awesome. So Emily, just in true Handshake fashion, we're all about building meaningful careers and meaningful, career pathways. So could you share with the folks listening in and me, what was your kind of college to career journey?
Yes, great question. I actually am really lucky that I started my career at Fox. I came straight out of school to Fox. In school, I really wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I majored in psychology, and so was always interested in people and knew I wanted to work with people. And so at the end of my program, I was actually looking through my school's job board for job opportunities. I'd never heard of Fox before, but they had a recruiting coordinator position open, and it sounded like the type of work I'd be interested in. So I applied, and once I got on site and got to meet the team, I really just fell in love with the company and everyone there, and canceled all my other interviews and went straight to Fox. And I've now been there for 5 years.
That's awesome.
And so the last 3 years of my career at Fox has been really focused on university recruiting, but I started working on the technical recruiting team.
That's incredible. That's awesome. Well, we're so excited to hear more about your story and some of the great work that you're doing at Fox. And to provide everyone with a little bit of a framework for today's discussion, in the spirit of just sharing best practices and community, we wanted to try something a little different. So instead of walking and walking through a deck, we're conducting a fireside chat with Emily, which we're really excited to do. And given the feedback and inquiries we've received from employers looking to increase diversity in the workforce, we've outlined 4 main discussion topics that we think are going to be really helpful for you all. And I'm going to pose questions to Emily. And for the diversity recruiters on the line that have been in the space for a while, you're probably well aware that there is no silver bullet to solving any D&I challenge. And some strategies work, some don't, but at Handshake, we believe that the best way to achieve goals is to share those best practices broadly and build community as we're doing it. We want everybody to be successful and really reach their goals. So having a D&I strategy that works is not only crucial, but it's just the right thing to do. So first, we'll dive into how Fox has structured their D&I efforts and how they created awesome D&I strategy. Then we'll discuss specific strategies that the Fox team is implementing, particularly around early talent as a way to increase diversity in their pipeline and workforce. Then we'll wrap up with Emily sharing how Handshake has helped her to really scale her D&I recruitment brand, increase student engagement efforts well beyond their local schools. And then we'll close out there and open up the lines for questions. Want to also set the stage here for folks that may be new to Handshake, right? So this is an exciting time in education and also in diversity and inclusion. Just to turn back the time, Handshake started 3 years ago by students that attended Michigan Tech. It's probably one of the most remote colleges in the U.S. They were particularly frustrated, though, with the lack of recruiters that were coming on campus. Now, Michigan Tech is in Houghton, Michigan. Maybe I'm mispronouncing that. Houghton, Michigan. About an 8-hour drive from Detroit and also Chicago. So you can imagine very few recruiters made that trek. And the founders here were particularly frustrated about the disconnect between employers and recruiters coming to campus. So they created a network of schools, employers, and students, and connected them on one platform with the goal of putting every job in America in front of every student in college in America. So we've been really focused on breaking down barriers to opportunity for all students. That's important to us, no matter what your background is. We've been really focused on expanding this university network. We announced it just a few weeks ago, but we've just hit 500 schools. We're super excited about this accomplishment. Many schools will be joining us this coming fall. So these are some of the updates that come to kind of transition the conversation here and involving Emily. So Emily, in my role, I've had the opportunity to advise a number of companies in the D&I space and really help create some impactful strategies. And what I've noticed, and you may have seen this too, is that there have been a number of shifts, right, in the D&I space. One, I would say that there's a changing demographic, right? So according to the U.S. Census and the current population growth of people of color, the year 2040 marks the start of the decade when the majority of the U.S. population will be people of color. Another fact that I've found pretty interesting is racial and gender diversity on teams and in leadership impacts financial returns. So many folks on the line may have seen this study, but in a recent McKinsey & Company study on the impact of diversity in the workplace, they found that companies in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective and national industry medians. So very interesting as well. And then lastly, so, at Handshake, we love data. We believe that data really helps employers recruit effectively and smart. And in a recent Handshake student survey, nearly 70% of students respond to that they would only work for an employer that has built an inclusive company culture, which provides a sense of belonging to all employees from all backgrounds. Very interesting, 70% of students. So I think I've come to realize that these trends really pose several challenges, but also opportunities for employers. The difficulty with trying to create a pipeline of underrepresented students, whether that be racial, gender, geographical, or socioeconomic, often means expanding your campus reach, your campus footprint, traveling to campus far less traveled, and building relationships with diversity, inclusion focused organizations. These trends also mean that there's an opportunity to create dynamic teams, inclusive cultures, and really create competitive products. So, given how diversity is an imperative for companies to compete in this global economy, we reach out to our friends here at Box and discuss how they successfully build a diverse and inclusive workforce and a recruitment strategy. So, Emily, just to start us off here, I would love to learn more about Box. Tell the folks online, what is Box doing and kind of the overall scope of your company.
Yeah, of course. So Box is a tech company. We are based in the Bay Area, and we've been around since 2005. In 2005, we were founded by our co-founders, Aaron Levy and Dylan Smith. They were a classic startup story coming out of college, trying to solve this problem that they saw around storage and file storage. And so Box was founded originally focused on file storage, and we worked with consumers as well as businesses. But as we continued to grow, we realized that there was really complex and interesting use cases on the business side. And so in 2007, we actually shifted our focus as a company to exclusively work with business customers. So today we serve over 82,000 businesses across all industries, whether that's healthcare, media, entertainment, finance, retail, government, construction. We have customer support teams, really all over the place, because every company has files, whether those are like Pixar storing files for their movies that they're working on, or it's Stanford Hospital storing patient information, or a sports team storing like their scouting notes. And Box is a place to not only store those files, but also share, access, manage, and collaborate on them to be more efficient and effective with the way they work. So it's a really exciting place to be, because we're something that is powering like how every company works, and there's a huge opportunity in front of us to really help transform the way people are doing business day to day.
That's really exciting. Yeah, so I know you have offices in Redwood City, the office in New York. You're also serving clients internationally. And how many employees?
Yes, we have, I think we're at 1,700 employees right now. So we are a global company. We have offices in London and Japan as well, and currently starting to put some feet in the ground in Australia too.
Awesome, that's incredible. Well, would love also a snapshot of your team, right? So let's dig in there. Would love a quick snapshot of the university recruitment team, some of your roles that you're recruiting for. Please tell us more.
Yeah, so of the 1,700 employees we have at Box, 3 of us are working on university recruiting.
Oh boy.
That includes myself and 2 other recruiters on my team.
Okay.
This team is pretty small, but we handle all university recruiting, at least in the U.S. right now, across the entire business. So that includes all software engineering hiring we do out of university, internships, as well as full-time. That includes the business side too. So we do a lot of work with sales. We have an entry-level sales program for people coming out of school to get started in a sales career. We do a ton of hiring for that group. We hire for our own team, recruiting. That's where I got started. It's a great place to get started for new grads as well as customer support, and really across the whole business. Any team that decides they want to bring in an intern for the summer, that comes through us. And so we get to work with every different organization at Box. And so a lot of different teams, to be honest.
You're certainly a small but mighty team. I've heard that a lot. There's, I think, lots of folks on the call that probably work on a small team like yours that are doing incredible work. And you are recruiting all across the company. How many entry-level hires are you looking to?
It's quite a lot. So on the engineering side, it's primarily through our internship program. Our internship program is not too big for a tech company. We bring in about 15 software engineering interns, and across the business, there are 30 interns in total. So the other 15 are kind of scattered through other teams. So luckily, that's something that we can manage, but we're doing a similar volume on full-time as well, bringing in 15 to 30 people every year. We also dabble in MBA hiring as well. So we do a bit of working with business schools and bringing in MBA grads into rotational programs or direct into the business as well. So across our team, I would say we're probably hiring like 60, 70 people year over year.
Perfect. Now the transition the topic a little bit now into the diversity discussion. Are you familiar with the first round capital and VC? Okay, so they have a survey for folks who don't know. They're a VC in the Bay Area, and they have a survey where they basically reach out to lots of founders. I think this year they had about 869 respondents. So a pretty comprehensive study. And when asked, does your organization have a strategy to promote diversity and inclusion, only 17% of founders had a formal plan in place. 58% of companies said that they had a strategy, but not an official strategy. And when I was reading that, it didn't necessarily shock me. I mean, the conversations that I've had with employers, they want to prioritize D&I strategy and recruitment, but they just don't know where to start. So it's something I do hear a lot, and I know that this is not something that is probably particularly just focused on for startups, but companies of all sizes all across the country. And I know that CEO Aaron Levy has been very vocal about diversity and is very passionate about it. So I'm curious to know just more about the kind of the maturation from kind of creating this D&I strategy, how it has really like what are, I guess, your overall D&I goals as you really think about creating this plan. Box.
That's a great question. And I think this is, as you said, something that our CEO, Aaron, is really passionate about and our whole executive team really cares about. For all those reasons you outlined earlier, it's really just the best thing to do for the business. And I feel pretty lucky working at Box that our executive team has bought into this and understands the importance, and so is really supportive of all the work we're doing. But then definitely translating that into an actual plan is, it can be tricky for any company, and that's a lot of the work that I've been doing over the last couple of years, is trying to figure out, okay, we have the support, we have like the North Star, the mission to go out and solve this. How do we actually go do it? And so at Box, we do have some internal goals that we've set around like what we want to do and accomplish, and we're making sure that we're looking at it not just from attracting talent, but also retaining talent. And so we actually recently brought in a new head of talent and belonging, and so she is going to be leading a lot of our D&I strategy, and she's also in charge of talent across the entire company, and so directly linking our D&I strategy to how we do performance reviews, and making sure that things we're doing internally for our inboxers, as we call them, are fair and inclusive of all people of all backgrounds. And so that's really fantastic, and I'm very excited to see the work that she's going to start building out. And then on the recruiting side, a lot of that comes back to me and my team and trying to figure out how to make this into an actual plan to really broaden kind of our talent pool and make sure that we're instituting fair practices as well in how we evaluate candidates. And so we've done some of the things that many of you, I'm sure, have heard about around building unconscious bias training for all of our hiring managers and rolling out hiring best practices to our teams. But I think given for every company just where we're starting from and how much more there is to go, there's a lot more we want to be doing, and simply unconscious bias training is not going to solve everything for you.
And I guess another follow-up question: how important is it to have a CEO or leadership on board when setting a strategy?
Yes, it is very, very helpful. I think it's really important because ultimately, like, a lot of what we're doing requires changing behaviors and changing our processes that people are used to and comfortable with. And so in order to affect those changes, you do need executive support. That said, and I'm happy to talk more about this as we get into it, I think there are ways to help build that executive support if you're struggling to get buy-in, because I know certainly that's something I've heard talking to other recruiters is like, they say that they want diversity, but they are not totally bought in on changing things. And so a lot of the work I've done is figuring out how not just to build new plans, but align those new plans with business goals. And so it's easier for our hiring managers to be bought in on these changing practices that serve both business goals as well as diversity and inclusion goals.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful. And then when we think about it, that's why we're here to help college students. So, at Handshake, we say we're all about democratizing opportunity. And let's break that down a little bit, right? What does that mean? And so, recruiters see campus recruitment as a way to source entry-level talent. And I think for so long, schools that a student would attend, the school that they would attend would really have an outside influence on the career opportunities that were available to them, right? Which career opportunities even were not available to them. So, for example, if you take a student, right, that's maybe first generation, who's a talented mathematician, and she, decided to work close to home and support family. Many of you on the phone probably have recruited an incredible, talented mathematician like this and have discovered, but there are some recruiters that may not. And the limitations may just because of geography and getting out to that particular school, or the resources to really find or build relationships with the campus. Many detractors there. So it becomes an issue that is not an issue of pipeline because the talent is there. It's really a recruitment, attraction, and outreach challenge. So I'm curious to hear more about, how do you all think about just really approaching entry-level talent as a really a way to solve, D&I challenges that you may be facing?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something I talk about a lot internally with my teams. I think diversity and inclusion it's difficult, and there's like a lot of barriers around resources and bandwidth, but in many ways undergraduate recruiting is one of the best opportunities to connect with students of underrepresented backgrounds. They're already at clubs that are like Society of Women Engineers or National Society of Black Engineers, and you can connect directly with those clubs. So it's just easier to build connections and easier to find candidates of different backgrounds. There's, of course, the historically Black colleges and universities, as well as Hispanic serving institutes that you can seek out and go directly to those populations. So there's a lot of avenues already in place to connect with students of underrepresented backgrounds and open up opportunities for them. And so in many ways, it's when we talk about university recruiting here at Vox, we're always trying to think about, like, are we best taking advantage of those channels? And university recruiting has a lot of advantages around scale and efficiency, but that's also, I think, one of those big advantages. And so that's something we're always evaluating about our university recruiting programs is, are we effectively engaging with the populations, with the groups that are already there?
Right. Yeah.
And so this has become a huge part of kind of our goal. And so we want to make sure in all of our undergraduate programs that we're engaging with those populations. And also, I think it's a huge branding opportunity for us as well as these students to kind of get them aware of Vox as they enter the workforce, even if they're not going directly to Vox, as they continue on in their careers, being people that we could engage with down the line as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and I noticed that many companies are doing internal audits, right, of their kind of workplace inclusion and seeing how, employees of color feel like they belong, really revamping their internship programs. And that's something that we'll talk about. So there's a lot, it seems, that are happening that's shifting in the workplace. And I know that you've given us a few kind of programs and strategies that have really been helpful. Affinity groups, or for some on the phone, also employee resource groups for others. Developed a really interesting process, right, to revamp the intern interview process that you really restructured in a creative way. I love what you did with the business fellowship program of attracting more students. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also Handshake. So one thing, let's go through the list. I guess kind of working backwards here from program all the way to attraction and sourcing. Give us, I guess, a snapshot of how affinity groups have really impacted your recruitment strategy and increasing belonging at Vox.
Yeah. So we have over 10 affinity groups here at Vox right now, and there seem to be more and more forming every week. This is something that has been really important internally. I think it's something that we think about as part of the inclusion strategy as well, providing communities for all of our Voxers where they can talk about kind of issues that are specific to their community or things that they're working with and dealing with, and also providing ways for them to engage with the larger community. So some of our largest affinity groups right now are the Black Excellence Network, the Vox Women's Network, and Latinx. But we also have affinity groups focused on veterans, on the LGBTQ community, on families as well. And it's really exciting to see all these groups forming and being founded by Voxers who are just passionate about connecting their communities. Yeah. And while these communities provide great resources internally, they've also become part of our attraction strategy and really involved in the way we recruit. In some ways, just knowing that these communities exist is an attraction strategy for a candidate. Yeah. Because if a candidate from one of these backgrounds or identities is considering Vox, knowing that they're going to have these resources for them when they come in is a huge selling point. Yeah. And so these are groups that we make sure that our candidates know about, that are available to them when they come to Vox, and also groups that we sometimes connect directly with candidates during the interview and the offer process. And so if I have candidates, for example, I had an intern candidate last fall who really cared about being a woman in engineering and kind of what that was like and what that was going to be at Vox. So I actually connected with her with our Women in Technology group, and they were able to get on the phone. They had a great conversation, and so she really felt like she understood kind of what the opportunity was, what the community was, and now that she's here for this internship, they're meeting regularly. Yeah. She's part of the community, and so that really helped her understand where she wanted to work this summer. Yeah. And so getting our affinity groups involved in the recruiting process has been a really crucial strategy for attracting the talent that is coming from underrepresented backgrounds.
That's incredible. Yeah. I was just talking to, I think it was a recruiter at Uber, and see, I'm a firm believer that, students should be able to see themselves at that company, right? And they were sharing many of their strategies, but they said one of the great advantages of having affinity groups is being able to have them have an honest conversation with those students, yeah, right? Exactly. Being able to ask some of the hard questions and have those authentic conversations. So it sounds like Vox is doing that, which is yeah, pretty incredible. Yeah. Now the next let me before I move on and rush through, are there any questions about affinity groups for Emily? Gonna pause right quick. Great. So we have a few questions that came in. Thank you so much for submitting them. So the first question that we have from Tiffany is, do affinity groups go to campus to recruit?
Yeah, it's a great question. They do, especially one thing that actually we talk more about later around remote strategy, but we actually have a lot of our employees in the field, including members of our affinity groups. And so we have some remote employees working out of the East Coast who have been able to go out to campus for us when we're not able to go out to campus ourselves as university recruiters. Mm-hmm. And so for career fairs specifically, we had a member of the Black Excellence Network head out to campus for a career fair at Spelman and Morehouse, and that was a really amazing opportunity. He was really excited about it. Yeah. I found that working with any employee, really, they're always excited to connect with students, and so if you present opportunities for people to get involved, they're usually more than happy to head out to campus and connect with students. I think it's something that's very fulfilling for people to talk to young excited talent. Yeah. But we think it's also really valuable for the students, as you were saying, to be able to connect directly with someone who has a similar background to them, to someone who they can imagine imagine themselves being one day working in a similar career. And so we do as much as we can get our members of our affinity groups involved in on-campus efforts, whether that's having them go to remote campuses that we can't go to, or bringing them to campuses we're visiting ourselves, or if we're hosting a student group at Vox, having members from our ERGs meet with them as well.
That's great. And another question that came in I think is pretty relevant, particularly for maybe the company that doesn't have ERGs or affinity groups. Can you speak more on how the groups form and then how they operate internally?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of that has quite honestly been organic at Vox. I think some of it is building awareness on our end as the recruiting and the talent and belonging team that this is something you can do as an employee. And so what we did is we set up just kind of a pretty simple system for if you were interested in starting an affinity group, here's what the process is. And then we advertised that really heavily. And then we found that the affinity groups came up naturally from people who were passionate about diversity and inclusion from there. And so all of our groups have been self-started by people throughout the business, not usually by the recruiting or the talent belonging team. And I think that's what's also made them really successful, is that it's not something we're kind of forcing people to buy into, but it's something that is formed by people who feel the need in their day-to-day and want to build that community. And so the main thing for us as a recruiting team and as an HR team is just giving them a pathway to do that. So making it clear that this is an option and setting up a system of here are the steps you follow.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's go to the next topic here, and thank you for answering those questions. Your business fellowship. So a personal story here. I remember when I was in college and Google came to our campus, and I was just so intimidated. One, because it's Google. Two, I wasn't a computer science major. I was a political science major, so in the humanities. But if I knew that there were business opportunities and opportunities outside of the tech sphere, I probably would have joined. So I would love to hear more about what prompted you to create a business fellowship and really reach more students through this means of having a fellowship.
Yeah, well, it's exactly that. We really found that when we were going out to campus or even hosting students in our office, there was this kind of misconception that if you wanted a career in the tech industry, you had to be a software engineering major. I actually remember really vividly, we had a group of students visiting our office, and we were giving them a tour of our office floor where the HR team sits. And we were like, oh, these are the recruiters. This is our people operations team. And one of the students goes, wow, and all of them are engineers. And we were like, no, actually, they're not all engineers. You don't have to be an engineer to work here. And we found this over and over with students we engaged with, and we really wanted to kind of dispel that myth and open up Box and other tech companies to students who are not engineering majors, because we, of our 1,700 employees or so, only 400 or about are in engineering. There are so many other opportunities for people of different majors, different backgrounds, different skill sets. And I think sometimes those get hidden in the rush to recruit engineering talent. And we really wanted to highlight those opportunities for students who have interest in other areas. And so we built the business fellowship as a way to help expose students of underrepresented backgrounds to career paths that were available for them in tech. Specifically, we were looking at career paths in sales and customer success, in recruiting and HR, a lot of the things that are not necessarily covered in school. And so a lot of these students actually were studying finance. And thought that was kind of the only option for them if they weren't an engineer. And one of the really exciting things about the program is we brought these students into our office. They spent a week at Fox over spring break, meeting with our founders, meeting with our executives, meeting with our different teams, learning about how the business operates, learning about what the career path looks like as a salesperson at a tech company, as someone who works in customer support. And at the end of the week, so many of these students were like, wow, I had never considered that this was a career path that was available to me, and now it's something I'm really excited about. And so really just trying to help students explore different options. And I think especially for these students who are coming from outside the Bay Area, from underrepresented backgrounds, these options were just never even explained to them before. And so not just explaining it, but giving them firsthand exposure to meet directly with our teams and also practice kind of the skills they would be using, do kind of mock calls, mock sales pitches, and really just kind of try on the role.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love the inspiration. I love the focus on, educating students about the opportunities that are there. Now, when do you start planning this program?
So we conduct it over spring break. So it usually happens in the middle of March. And so we start planning it in January. So fall is always crazy, as you guys in university recruiting know. And so as soon as fall started to die down, we then start reaching out to students for this opportunity. We do have to do pretty aggressive advertising for it, because the whole premise is students that we're going after are not considering tech companies. And so we really need to be proactive in reaching out to students and being like, hey, this is an opportunity for you. We actually had a student who was in the fellowship last year who saw the opportunity and was like, oh, tech company, and started forwarding it to one of her friends who was an engineer, and then was like, wait a second, this is for me. And she ended up having an amazing experience in the fellowship, and is really excited about pursuing a career path in tech now. But we really have to be very proactive and very explicit in kind of what is available to them and what opportunities we're presenting.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then the next question of kind of ROI, measuring success. How do you measure success? Is it, conversion to hire? Or,
that's a great question. I think in many ways this program is it is a big branding opportunity for us. It's all about exposing opportunities. We really want it to be focused on learning for the students, and so we don't do any interviews during the week, and we make it really clear to the students that this experience is for you. At the end of the week, if they are really interested in pursuing opportunities at Box, if they found like a team that they're really excited about, we do offer them to go through an expedited interview process. So there are many people who have joined Box after the fellowship, and we are so excited to have them there. But at the same time, like, that is only one of our goals in the program. Our other goals are just looking at how are these students after the fellowship, like, considering other careers. So we have students who've gone through our fellowship and actually gone to careers at different tech companies, and we consider that a success as well, because these students were not considering tech at all before the fellowship. We also, of course, do a survey after the whole week that's anonymous with the students to understand their experience, understand what was valuable, make sure we're improving year over year. And also year over year, we're looking at kind of what is the brand awareness of the fellowship. So how many applications are we getting? Where are those applications coming from? And we saw a huge increase in applications from our first year to our second year, and a lot of them were coming from word of mouth. They knew people who had done the fellowship the year before, and they had had such like a valuable experience that they wanted to tell all their friends about it. And so the interesting thing here is, even though the fellowship itself is quite small, like, we're only making a direct impact on 16 people, word of mouth is such a huge part of campus recruiting and campus strategy that we have a really powerful impact on a small group, and it's so powerful that they want to tell all their friends about it. And so that spreads our brand as an employer at these campuses, that they are in Florida or in North Carolina or on the East Coast that we can't go to, but now we have an advocate for us on campus as someone who went through this program.
Awesome. It looks like we have a few questions that came in, and the first one is, what are the majors of the fellows? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually do not have any requirements around majors. We're open to all majors, and so they really varied. We did certainly see a lot of people coming from finance, just because I think that's a very popular major for students on the business side. But considering that our opportunities were in sales and customer success, those are jobs that you can't major in college. And so we're not looking for kind of sales majors. We're just looking for people who have kind of customer-facing experience or might be interested in that career. So the majors we saw were everything from history to English. There was one student who had a quadruple major that was combining business and a kind of like media studies. It was very interesting. But really across the board, and helping them understand also how they can translate the skills that they've learned in college, regardless of their major, to a career in the industry.
That's awesome. And then one other question that we had, and we can just a little more on the Handshake side, but how did you go about identifying students, reaching out to them? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so our main criteria in kind of, because we did have to only bring in 16 people, and so choosing who we wanted to bring to this program, we really wanted to identify the people who were going to get the most out of the program, who are going to really engage, really kind of seize the opportunity and use it to learn and grow themselves. And so the things we were looking for was, regardless of major, regardless of experience, it was all about how do they stretch themselves? How are they pushing themselves? How are they growing? And so that can manifest in a way that, like, looking at people who took on leadership opportunities in their clubs, really wanted to like grow not just themselves, but the club. Or people who like had been working as well as doing school, people who were used to kind of putting in the hard work. And during the interview process that we did, one of the questions I asked all of the fellows was, tell me about a time you've decided to learn something that was not required of you. So what opportunities are they seeking out outside of just what they have to do in their day-to-day school? And that was something that was really important for us in this program because it's a learning program. They're sacrificing their spring break to spend the whole week in a corporate office. And so we're really looking for people who are going to get the most out of that and really kind of grow and stretch themselves and take what they learned here and apply it to their lives and their careers.
Yeah, and then I think you made a few hires, if I'm correct, through Handshake. Can you talk a little bit about that campaign and reaching out?
Yeah, it was fantastic. So Handshake, with all their functionality around doing proactive email messaging and the robust profiles that they have on students, made it really easy for us to find students who would be great candidates for this program. And so we had a member of my team who is looking through Handshake, reaching out to individual students based on their profiles, but also reaching out to entire student organizations, saying like, hey, like Hispanic Society of Business Majors, like this is an opportunity that might be interesting for all of your members. We would love to share it with you. And so Handshake was a great tool for connecting that, especially because we were explicitly going after students who were not in the Bay Area. So we could not go out to campus to advertise this opportunity. And so we really had to make all of our connections over Handshake, over email, and all remotely. And so Handshake's messaging platform made it incredibly valuable for us. And I think we had 4 people in the end who were directly messaged from Handshake and came into the fellowship.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. So let's move on here. And this next topic is something that I'm really excited about because a lot of recruiters are really thinking about how do we create a equitable interview process. So tell us about how Box went about this, kind of the old process, and then how you revamped it and when it ended up happening.
Yeah, so this is one of the programs and processes that I'm really, really excited about. We have hired year over year about 15 software engineering interns, and our process has been the same for the last 5 years. And in about the summer of the fall of 2016, we were really struggling. The process was not efficient. It was not giving us the results we wanted, and we were really struggling to connect with students of underrepresented backgrounds, which, as I said earlier, was one of the big goals of our program. And our old process, as you've seen outlined here, was we would do a resume review of all the candidates who passed the resume review. We would send them an online coding exercise through HackRank, which is a timed test where they're given a prompt and asked to write some code. Our engineers review it. If they passed the HackRank exercise, we then did a 2-hour interview. For us, the questions were an elevator question, which is focused on design, and then 1 hour focused on algorithms. And this was actually just a shorter version of the way we're interviewing people full time. Each of the interviews was 1 hour. The candidate maybe had 10 minutes to ask questions at the end of the interview. And then if they passed those 2 interviews, we made them an offer. And it was very simple and very straightforward, but we found that I would jump on the phone to make the offer, and the candidate had barely any idea what Box was. They didn't really understand the internship. They'd only gotten like a little bit to ask questions. And so we were really struggling to close students. We had, at one point at the end of the regular fall hiring season, made 10 offers to women, and none of them had accepted for our engineering internship. And so we also found that students of underrepresented backgrounds were really struggling with the nature of the interviews, which were timed, were the kind of classic whiteboarding coding interviews that are really dependent on memory recall. And as diversity and inclusion has always been a big part of our university goals, we realized this wasn't working, and we wanted to fix it. And so I got together with a couple engineers, and we formed a task force to redesign the process. And this was a pretty big change, but we were able to get support for this change by first outlining why this was necessary to address kind of our goals around diversity and inclusion, but also tying it to the business results. So the other thing that we wanted to deliver in this was just to increase our close rate overall of offers to accepted, which would ultimately save time for the engineers. And our engineering leadership team was very concerned about the amount of time we were spending interviewing, because that obviously takes away from the amount of time our engineers can code. And while they know that interviews are important, the time commitment was quite large. And so by telling our leadership team that we could kind of solve both problems with one. That really helped them be supportive of this new program, which is actually pretty radical. So the new program that we built out and implemented in this fall of 2017 was, we kept HackerRank, but we updated the questions to be really focused on things that we knew every kind of like second year CS student would study, and we also extended the time of it so that the time constraint didn't become a factor in whether or not they were able to complete the HackerRank. And then the biggest change we made is we got rid of our 2-hour back-to-back coding interviews and replaced it with a 2-week take-home exercise. And so as students completed the HackerRank, we kind of sorted them into cohorts where every student in this about 20-person cohort, 30-person cohort would start the take-home on the same day. We sent them this documentation that outlined what is the exercise we're asking them to build. We gave them stub code, we gave them documentation around like what's expected of them, what they're looking for, and they had 2 weeks to complete the assignment. And in many ways, this was designed to model things they're already doing for class projects. So how they are given assignments in school, but also how they're going to actually perform in the internship.
And it sounds like students loved it.
It was super, super popular. The students really responded very well to the take-home exercise. And I think the thing that also helped a lot with the take-home exercise is we, during the 2-week period, offered office hours. And so we would host these office hours. We hosted 5 during the 2 weeks where our engineers got on a webinar and talked a bit about the take-home exercise itself, talked a bit about kind of what was expected of them, and also just answered questions about Box and the internship. And so at the end of the 2-week time period, the students now felt like they were being more fairly evaluated. They felt like they really got a chance to show their skills, and they had much better connections with our team. They had spent now hours with our team. And this led to a ton of great outcomes that, as you can see here, we were able to increase our offer acceptance rate from 44% to 70%. We brought in way more students of underrepresented backgrounds. We saw similar close rates regardless of background. And we also were able to deliver on the promise to reduce engineering time. And so we saved about 100 hours in interviews.
That's incredible. And I think as we transition over to Handshake and some of the work that you're using the platform for. So tell me about, Box is obviously a tech company. You are recruiting students from all across the country. Would love to hear more about how you're using Handshake to just help attract more underrepresented talent.
Handshake has been incredibly helpful for us because of all those things we've discussed already around constraints, around resourcing and bandwidth. Handshake has really helped us get over those barriers. And so in the past, we were only able to go on campus to about 6 schools, and now via Handshake, we're connected to over 200 schools from across the country. For programs like our fellowship, this allows us to advertise the opportunity, and also through the proactive messaging campaigns that Handshake offers, we can reach out directly to students. And so this has really helped us expand our reach and broaden our opportunities to students, regardless of what school they're going to. There's great talent in all of those schools. And it's also helped kind of differentiate us from our peers who are maybe not reaching out to those schools. And so for some of the students that we're reaching out to, we're the only Bay Area company they're hearing from. And that's only possible through Handshake, although I definitely encourage more Bay Area companies to also reach out to these schools.
Definitely. And then, you definitely have made some strides. Talk about, what has that meant for your kind of school interactions, applications, how's that really affected you and your team? Time saved?
It has definitely saved a lot of time. So in the past, where it would have been really manual for us to reach out individually to all of these schools, this has allowed us to do it at scale. And previously, when we looked at the makeup of our internship program, almost all of it was students coming from the Bay Area, and now we see way more applications, way more students coming from across the country, getting exposure to Box and into the opportunities here. This, like I said earlier, has allowed us to differentiate, and as I also mentioned, we've hired some really amazing people through the direct messaging options on Handshake.
That's awesome, So we're conscious of time here. We also want to make sure that we're able to finish the rest of the information and provide it to the audience. So want to skip through and talk about some of the ways that we're going to be working with Box this fall. So Box is a premium partner, and we wanted to share how the customer success team, so Mallory and several on our team, are going to be working with our partner companies to really reach more underrepresented students. So to build out the capabilities of this pre-application space, we're building out what we call Account Engagement Suite for fall 2018. And it's based on what we think of as the full recruitment cycle pre-application, right? Which is to firstly figure out, who your target segments are, right? So these are the students you want to engage with, then to educate and inspire them with personalized branding, content, and virtual events, and then reach those students at scale with scheduled campaigns, as Emily shared. Now, this is a platform that helps you scale up across multiple schools, multiple functions, various roles, without doing the busy work as we see it across sourcing and messaging students during the peak of the fall season when everybody's very, very busy. And finally, students that show an interest where there is a mutual fit, you can connect with those students and see the full context of their applicant journey from the first message sent to the application sent. So instead of student being just a resume and email address, that they were someone that you reached out to, that they were a specific student audience or a priority segment that attended a live event or a virtual event. They met your team at the career fair and responded to a campaign about a role you were hiring for. So very specifics, and we really believe that having this data and being able to track your pipeline is really critical, and I think the heart of any recruitment team, and very important to us. So what we would like to do is quickly show you some of the examples of what that looks like, and we do believe that the cornerstone of any excellent recruitment strategy is a live view of the activity of your pipeline, particularly underrepresented student groups, and how students are engaging with your brand, right? So moving forward here, I think I skipped a slide. So we've talked about segmentation, and this is the ability to define a group based on parameters, similar to what you see in the search capabilities in Handshake today, but the ability to do, that in more dimensions, including behavioral dimensions, is the next step. So take this example, right? Students that are highly active in Handshake, which you probably want to know, and students that are interested in your company, then let's add another layer to that. So say you want to reach out to students that are really competitive, right? So you want the student that has a 4.0, they are members of National Society of Black Engineers, they attend a school that is has a very popular CS program, and you would probably expect for them to be very competitive. And what Handshake is doing is giving you the intelligence to inform you that they are a very competitive candidate, and will provide recommendations like maybe decreasing or modifying the GPA or adding more schools to increase the size of the audience, right? So here at Handshake, we want you to be very successful. I can't emphasize that enough. So we do have a fantastic customer success team that's helping our partners optimize their school networks and criteria, particularly this upcoming fall. So to close this out, I think that the last thing I just want to share is, and we've talked a little about scheduling campaigns, and on the right-hand side here, you see an example of a campaign with specific criteria. So take the example of being able to set a campaign now in June that could be set up for a job that is closing in September, and that campaign would be launched a week before, while you're in the midst of traveling and you're at school, meeting with students, which is very important, having those face-to-face interactions, right? So we are very passionate about making sure that you're successful, that you have these best practices and tips. That's a quick overview of what's to come for our partners this fall. And now given the remaining time, I would like to pause for questions to see if any on the line would like to pose any more. Great. So here are a few resources that are available to you. If you would like to contact us and you have any questions, please email employers@joinhandshake.com. Emily's also said that she's willing to answer any questions that you have. We want to be available to you and be on the lookout for more webinars. Very excited that you were able to join us today. Emily, do you have any parting words or advice for folks that are still on the line?
Yeah, first off, again, really thank you guys all for listening. I would love to connect with anyone individually if you want to talk through more tactically how to kind of generate buy-in, develop new ideas, and implement those ideas. This is something I'm really passionate about. But I think that the main parting advice I would have is really, I think university recruiting is a unique space to be very creative and to develop these new programs. Students are not totally bought into like the existing recruiting practice, and they're interested in new and different ideas. And what we saw at Box is when we implemented these kind of different ways to hire, we saw an amazing response. And so I really encourage all of you guys to think about different ways that you can recruit that are creative, that are new, that are going to engage students and differentiate you as an employer as well.
Great. So with that, I think we gave everybody a minute back to their day. Once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening in, and hope everybody has a great day.
Goodbye.